Hezbollah's leader reveals footage to support his claim that Israel was involved in killing former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri. But has Hassan Nasrallah convinced anyone? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Hassan Nasrallah. The leader of Hezbollah has given what he called evidence implicating Israel for the assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri. In a televised speech, Hassan Nasrallah said Israel was trying to promote political instability inside the country with the killing of Hariri. The Hezbollah leader added this was part of a plot that goes back as far as the early 1990s.
We accuse the Israeli enemy of assassinating former Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri. Israel has the capability, and I don't believe we need to provide any evidence that Israel is capable of plotting and perpetrating similar operations and others that took place in Lebanon since 2004 till now.
In the speech, Nasrallah showed footage allegedly intercepted from Israeli surveillance planes. The video clips and aerial images reveal the site of Hariri's murder taken before the 2005 assassination took place. He also unveiled video clips of Hariri's homes in West Beirut and Parliament, his last stop before he was killed. Although Nasrallah admitted the footage was not concrete proof, he did say Hezbollah had no presence in the areas shown in the footage. Nasrallah's speech comes ahead of a UN-backed investigation expected to issue indictments against senior Hezbollah members over the assassination. Last month, Nasrallah dubbed the tribunal part of an Israeli project. In Monday's speech, he said he was willing to present the Lebanese government with Hezbollah's findings. Nasrallah stopped short of specifying what measures Hezbollah would take if the tribunal implicates any of the group's members. Well, joining us now to talk more about this are our guests. In Beirut, Elias Hanna, he's a retired Lebanese army general. Also in the Lebanese capital, Rafiq, he's the director of the Issam Faris Institute at the American University of Beirut. And in The Hague, Jed Odermatt, co-editor of the Hague Justice Portal. Rafiq, if I could start with you, I guess my first question is, do you think Hassan Nasrallah has presented a convincing case here?
He's presented an intriguing and partially compelling and interesting and important case, but not fully convincing. I think he has clarified many issues, that there are many Israeli spies in Lebanon, that Israelis have carried out military operations here for years, which we've known about, but he has not clarified why the evidence he has about Israel allegedly killing Hariri should be taken seriously. He has raised doubts about, or at least raised issues about, whether the tribunal, the international investigation, has explored every possible lead. So he's raised some legitimate issues, but these are issues that have been raised before. This provides a little bit more drama, and it's a little bit more tense at a moment when there's expectations of indictments. But the reality is we don't know who the tribunal is going to indict. We don't know what evidence they have. We don't know what the charges are going to be. So most of what is said about the tribunal is pure speculation, and what he has done, Nasrallah has done, is heightened the political speculation around this process, but also forced people to respond to the main charge, which is the tribunal has not investigated every possible lead, and that needs to be taken seriously.
Elias, Hanna, has Hassan Nasrallah done anything here to broaden the scope of suspicion on Israel?
I think that Secretary General has a set agenda. It is like a crescendo-like. He went into the first speech about telling or labeling this tribunal as Israeli-made, that does not have such a credibility. The second one was a press conference, and the third one was a speech, and now there is the fourth speech, and he promised to have more. So within this holistic approach, that I think that in his latest speech, he has messages in 4 dimensions. He has a message for the tribunal first, and he has a second message for Israel as a military, as he's capable of, eavesdropping on the drones of the Israelis. or his military capability, and he sent a message to the Lebanese government to open up some new way in order to more investigate what went wrong or what was the reason for the assassination of Prime Minister Hariri. The last one was for the Syrians. So I think that he himself did say yesterday that he didn't have a concrete evidence that in his hand in order to accuse Israel in particular. But he's trying, I think, to open up a new window by showing with many footages that Israel is capable, and Israel is the main beneficiary of the killing of Prime Minister Hariri. Moreover, he remembered, he mentioned the President Bashar al-Assad when he told him that a Arab president visited President Assad and asked him that you may stay in Lebanon, but you have to control Hezbollah. So it is about the implementation of the 1559. So when President Assad refused this, proposal, so they have to have something like catastrophic, like the assassination of President Hariri, to make the ceiling go out of Lebanon. So it is a holistic approach. He didn't convince, and he didn't have enough concrete proof, I guess.
Jed Odermatt, as a legal expert, give us some of your perspective here. While he admitted, Hassan Nasrallah admitted himself that he didn't provide concrete proof here. Did he do enough to convince the UN tribunal that they need to widen their investigation here?
We'll have to see. Most of the implications so far will be political, but as you know, the legal steps were still at the investigation stage. So it's still up to them to see how they'll change their investigation, or if they'll continue with making their indictments. There's a certain steps they'll need to follow, and they'll need to get a judge to issue the indictments. So it may not have political implications, but it may not have legal implications, but politically it's very changing. Yeah. All
right, talk us through some of those steps then. Assuming, let's just say for the sake of argument, some of this evidence is deemed to be credible, what would be some of the next steps, and how long would it take?
We're not sure when the prosecutor will make any announcement about when there'll be an indictment issued or who it might be. Of course, all this is speculation about who it might be. And the main thing to remember is that there might be evidence showing one party or another, but for it to be accepted in a court and for the judge to issue the indictments, there are strict legal guidelines about he has to be convinced that there are grounds to believe for there to be an indictment. At this stage, it doesn't seem to be that level has been met.
Rami Khouri, Hassan Nasrallah very rarely makes public appearances, but this is one of a number of speeches that he's given recently. Some feel that he's running scared here. Do you agree?
I don't know if he's running scared, but he's certainly a little bit more in a corner than he was 3 or 5 years ago. Hezbollah has been spectacularly successful as a resistance movement and a Shiite empowerment movement in Lebanon, throwing out the Israelis from the south. But they've been less successful at making the transition to full political engagement within Lebanon. And as General Hanna said, one of the messages, I think the most important message, was to the Lebanese government and to the Lebanese people in his speech. He's basically Nasrallah's problem is with the Lebanese people more than anybody else. There's half the country doesn't trust him, thinks he's a Syrian or Iranian puppet or a Trojan horse, and therefore his real problem is politically within Lebanon more than anything else right now. And his message, I think, was both a message and an opening to the Lebanese government. The Lebanese government is not a dead duck. It can play a role in this investigation. They can take evidence in from people like Hezbollah and others. The Lebanese government can take evidence and pass it on to the tribunal. So I think his options are less than they used to be. He's more concerned about creating more strife in the country or with Israel. He'll do it if he has to, but it's not an option that they will move too quickly. And therefore, he's looking at other options. And one of them is to get the Lebanese government to get involved in this investigation alongside the tribunal, And this is an option that I think the Lebanese government should consider, at least collecting evidence like Hezbollah's and passing it on to the tribunal, which I think the Lebanese government should do. And most Lebanese people would support that. That would be a unifying political move within the country.
Elias, Hanna, while Hassan Nasrallah may have brought up some new leads here, is he feeling the heat from this investigation, in your opinion?
I don't think so, because in Lebanon, if you control the ground and you have the arms, I mean, you may control or influence the political decision in Lebanon. But I think if you go through the 2.5 hours on TV, on Al-Manar, you may try to find like a line that he tried to, accuse Israel of being able to make drones or overfly Lebanon by drones and reconnaissance, following Prime Minister Hariri, and then implementing a lot of spies and trying to create some schism between Hezbollah and Prime Minister Hariri. And then he mentioned something we didn't, yet hear now so far mention it, that at the day of the assassination, there was the presence of an Israeli drone as well as the AWACS. So now he maybe is opening up to accuse or involve the Americans, because we know, all of us, that the Israelis, they don't have the AWACS. They have the Hawkeye. So it is something different. However, is he squeezed? Yes, I think he's squeezed, because I think he knows in advance what would be the indictment of the Hezbollah. Otherwise, he wouldn't go and make like 4 consecutive speeches in order to defend himself. I think he's trying to avoid the unthinkable at the Lebanese situation. He is maximalist in his demand and his approach. He wants that this tribunal is Israeli-made. I will not accept anything. It is not reliable, not credible. So all of a sudden, he opens up to the Lebanese government to open up a new parallel investigation. However, in the statement of this government, everybody agreed to cooperate with this international tribunal. So between the maximalist goals of Hassan Nasrallah and the minimalist goal of this government, I think that we will have at least a political instability in the coming time.
Do you think as well, Rami Khouri, that given the hair-trigger situation in this region and the current tensions, that the fact that so much because things are so tense at the moment, is it really the fear of not wanting to spark a wider conflict? Is that the only thing that's actually stopped one so far?
Well, yeah, the Lebanese have a lot of experience, unfortunately, with both internal fighting and wars and assassinations and regional conflagrations as well, and they don't particularly want another one. Hezbollah is prepared to fight a war. We know that. And Israel is prepared to fight a war, and neither of them will hesitate to do that if they feel it is their only option. But it is not something that either of them wants to do right away. So the Lebanese are very keen to preserve the calm that we've had for the last 2.5 years. And we had recently the Syrian president and the Saudi king. Those are the two heavyweights of the two ideological poles of the Arab world. The Syrian, Iranian, Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamist, Arab nationalist kind of axis represented by Syria, and the conservative, pro-American, Western, traditional axis headed by the Saudis. Both those leaders came together, and they didn't come just to have lunch with the Lebanese president. They came to send a powerful signal that they don't want Lebanon to blow up again into a regional war. The problem is that neither the Saudis nor the Syrians are the main problem. The main issue, in many ways, is in Iran and the Iranian-American confrontation. So this is Lebanon's dilemma, that so much of its internal problems and the proxy confrontations and wars here or assassinations are a reflection of regional or even international ideological confrontations. And this is one of the great tragedies of modern Lebanon. And these won't be resolved until the Arab-Israeli issue is resolved, until inter-Arab tensions are resolved, and Iranian-Western tensions are resolved. But for the moment, people want to preserve the peace, and Nasrallah is signaling also that he's ready to play that game, but he also wants to protect the resistance, which is how he sees the main role and raison d'etre of Hezbollah.
All right, I want to go back to the evidence again that Hassan Nasrallah presented here, and Elias, Hanna, I want to put this to you. The surveillance video that he presented there, the purported Israeli surveillance video, what did you make of that? Did that do anything to convince anyone, do you think?
In fact, this is, if you remember when we started this episode, I talked that there was a military message that Hezbollah is capable of interfering within the transmission of the drones. Maybe it is not convincing as it is, and Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah said that we don't have concrete evidence about accusing Israel. But however, these drones and these surveillance videos were a part of a whole process within this last speech. You know, the speech, the drones, the spies, and the beneficiary, and Israel is capable of doing anything. And then we have to open up a window toward Israel and maybe ask if Israel is the culprit and open up to the international tribunal to Israel. And yeah, you have to investigate what happened for Israel, because Israel is the main beneficiary of the assassination of Prime Minister Hariri. However, is it possible for the international tribunal to go to Israel? That's why I said no, it's not possible. So that's why maybe in the future we will see something like internal strife, I hope, to stay at the political level only.
But I just want to ask you again about this, Israeli video. What Hassan Nasrallah says is an Israeli video, about the authenticity of it. Do you think from what you saw that it came from drones?
No, I mean, you mean if it is Israeli, genuine Israelis?
Yes.
Yes, it is Israelis, because the credibility of...
Sorry, my question specifically is, do you think it came from Israeli drones?
Yes, yes. I mean, the resistance or Hezbollah was able to interfere and register this video from the Israeli drones, yes. And I think that the credibility of Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah is very high. And I think, yes, it's really Israelis, but we've seen only a part of it, not the whole picture. Maybe they were monitoring the capital, and maybe were monitoring Juni, and maybe they're monitoring the south, but not only monitoring the former Prime Minister Rafiq al-Hariri.
Rami Khoury, if I could come back to you, you alluded to this problem in your earlier answer about too many outside forces exerting their influence on Lebanon. What then do you think is the solution? Do they need to step back and let people within Lebanon resolve these issues themselves?
Well, ideally, yes, but that's not going to happen, because people have been involved from outside of Lebanon in the short run for the last 140 years or so, in the long run for about the last 6,000 years. So it depends how you take a long or a short view of history. So
what's the solution then? I mean, sorry to interrupt. If it's not forces outside, if it's not the people themselves inside, where do you see this being resolved?
Well, the solution is ideally, and maybe romantically, but to apply the rule of law consistently to everybody. So to Hezbollah, to other Lebanese, to Syria, to Israel, to Iran, to the U.S. Forces in the Middle East, to have a single rule of law, whether it's UN resolutions or international humanitarian law, whatever it may be, that everybody is responsible and accountable to the same moral code and legal code. And I think that's something that will take time. The intent of the tribunal, I think, is critical to understand. Why did the Security Council unanimously create this investigation and the tribunal? Clearly, it was designed to have a political message to stop these assassinations in Lebanon, to stop the impunity of the murders over many, many years. Many of the people in the Security Council, the Western powers especially, thought the Syrians were guilty. Many Lebanese thought Syrians were guilty. And that was clearly an intent at the beginning. They've now looked more at Hezbollah from what we hear. And therefore, there is a political dimension to this, but there's also a legal dimension. So this is a long-term process, and it's not going to be resolved quickly. But just one quick point. I think Nasrallah was trying to do something which is really intriguing in terms of law and judicial cases, which is to cast doubt in international law, people are found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If there's a reasonable doubt, you don't find somebody guilty and try and give them a death sentence or life in prison. If there's a reasonable doubt, you've got to get more evidence. And I think what Nasrallah was trying to do is plant that seed of reasonable doubt in the evidence that's there now. And we have to see what is the reaction of the tribunal, but also what is the reaction of the Lebanese government and people. This will take a few days to see what happens.
All right, let's put that question to our man in The Hague then, Jed Odermatt. Has Hassan Nasrallah, if not convinced anyone that Israel is behind this, has he pointed up enough legitimate areas of reasonable doubt here?
It's not the stage really now to look at whether or not there's reasonable doubt. It's still at a very early stage. It's at the stage of investigation. The prosecutor is an independent body. The United Nations or Israel or Lebanon can't really tell him which information to use and which isn't useful. So you must be reminded that it's an impartial and independent investigation. Whether or not it will have any effect on the investigation, we can't tell. But at this stage, reasonable doubt doesn't come into it. He's trying to do an investigation to see who actually committed those crimes and whether or not there's enough evidence to prove that at a later stage in court.
All right, then briefly in the 2 minutes that we have left, one final question I want to put to all of you. I want to start with you, Rafiq. If this investigation does implicate anyone from Hezbollah, what's likely to happen next?
Well, there will be a lot of political tension. It depends a lot on the actual indictments, the nature of the people who are indicted, and the nature of the evidence that's presented in court. Right now, Hezbollah has, and many others supporting it, have said that they don't believe the investigation is fair. They believe the tribunal is a political project of the Israelis and the Americans and others. Therefore, they are not cooperating with it, and they will resist it. And so you will have political tension if, in the current circumstances, the indictments come down and name Hezbollah. But there's a serious political negotiation going on right now, of which Nasrallah's speeches are part of this negotiation, and the Syrian Saudi visits. The Iranian foreign minister is coming here today or tomorrow. So you've got all of this. The Mitchell's assistant was here, George Mitchell. So there's a serious political negotiation going on to define the political contours of this process, to contain the damage that might happen, but also to make sure that justice is done. Because in the end, this is to do justice, stop the killings, and stop the impunity of the assassinations that Lebanon has endured.
All right,
for
Elias,
so long.
Hanna, how do you see this playing out briefly, if Hezbollah is implicated in this investigation?
Okay. When we have law, international law versus politics, usually politics wins. I think that indictment of Hezbollah will go into an internal political strife, and I think that a political solution will be imposed on Lebanon, since it is our culture, as my friend Rafiq said, that all political solutions in Lebanon were imposed since 1840 until the Doha Agreement.
And finally, Jed Odermatt, from a legal standpoint, where do you see this going?
The main thing is that when there's an indictment, there will have to be evidence. It'll be interesting to see what the evidence is brought against whoever is finally indicted, if anyone, because it's one thing to point fingers at each other, but what we're waiting for now is to see what grounds these are based on and what evidence can be used in a court of law to try anyone.
All right, gentlemen, that is it. We're going to have to end the discussion there. Thanks very much for joining us, all of you. Elias, Hanna, and Rafiq in Beirut, and Jed Odermatt in The Hague. Many thanks for your time. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. As always, we welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.